The auction yard smelled of dust, sweat, and old lies. Sunlight fell hard and merciless across the wooden platform, bleaching faces and stripping men of their civility. Caleb Hart stood at the edge of the crowd, hat low, jaw set like stone. He hadn't come to buy anything. He had come to witness a debt being collected. The girl on the platform, Lila Monroe, stood with her hands clasped in front of her, spine straight despite the tremor in her breath. She wasn't crying. That was what unsettled him most. Her eyes were dry, defiant, and dangerously calm, like someone who had already decided she would survive whatever came next. The auctioneer's voice cut through the air, calling out numbers like gunshots. Men laughed. Coins clinked, bets rose. Each price felt like a nail being driven deeper into something human. Caleb had seen cattle sold like this, land, horses, but never a person who looked back at the world as if daring it to break her. He told himself to walk away. He had no right to interfere. He was a rancher, not a savior. A man with his own ghosts, his own scars, his own rules. But when a drunk in a stained coat shouted an amount that made the crowd roar, something in Caleb snapped. He stepped forward, his voice low but carrying. He named a price so high the yard went silent. Heads turned. Even the auctioneer hesitated. Lila looked at him then. Not with gratitude, not with relief, with fury. Sold. The gavel fell like a coffin lid. Paperwork followed. Coins changed hands. The crowd dispersed, disappointed they hadn't gotten a better show. When it was done, Lila was led to Caleb like property being returned to its owner. She stopped in front of him, lifted her chin, and spoke words sharp enough to cut bone. "You paid for me," she said. "Now do it." The air froze. The men nearby went quiet, waiting for a reaction. Caleb's face didn't change. But his eyes darkened, not with desire, but with something older. Anger, shame, resolve. "No," he said. That single word confused everyone, especially her. He turned, handed her a coat, and told her to get on his horse. She didn't thank him. She didn't trust him. She followed because she had learned the cost of refusing. The ride to his ranch was long and silent. Dust curled behind them like a warning. When they arrived, Caleb showed her a room, clean, simple, with a bed and a window that faced open land instead of fences. "You stay here," he said. "You work if you want. You leave if you want." She laughed bitterly. "Men don't pay that much to set women free." He met her gaze. This one did. That night, Lila didn't sleep. Neither did Caleb. Somewhere, between the creak of the house and the howl of the wind, a choice had been made, but neither of them yet understood its cost. And as the fire burned low, Caleb wondered if buying her freedom had just chained him to something far more dangerous than any auction. Morning brought no clarity, only consequences. Word traveled fast in the West, and by noon riders were already whispering. A rancher had paid a fortune at auction. A woman had vanished from the ledger. Men who believed ownership was sacred didn't take kindly to disrupted business. Lila worked the ranch hard not because Caleb demanded it, but because she refused to be a guest. Every nail driven, every fence mended was her way of reclaiming herself. She spoke little, trusted less, but she watched Caleb closely. He never touched her, never raised his voice, never once reminded her of the money. That unsettled her more than cruelty ever had. Trouble came riding in on the third day. The man who'd lost the auction arrived with friends and paperwork, claiming fraud, claiming rights, claiming her. Caleb stood on the porch, rifle resting easy, voice calm as a grave. "She's not for sale." "She was," the man sneered. "And you paid. That makes her yours." Caleb looked at Lila then. Really looked. And understood the truth too late. In this world, freedom without protection was an illusion. So he did the unthinkable. He married her. No dress, no church. Just witnesses, a preacher passing through, and a vow spoken like a shield. The claim died where it stood. A wife could not be reclaimed. A husband had legal standing and deadly reason to defend what was his. Lila stared at him after the men left, shock cracking through her armor. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes," he said quietly. "I did." The marriage was real on paper, but fragile everywhere else. They lived like strangers sharing a war zone, but slowly, through storms, through danger. Through nights where the past came knocking, they learned each other. Respect turned to trust, trust to something warmer, something earned. And one evening, as the sun sank red over the land that was now hers too, Lila took Caleb's hand, not because she owed him anything, but because she chose him. The woman who had once said, "You paid for me," now said something far more powerful. "I'm staying." Not because she was bought, but because she was finally free. The West never forgot a scandal, but it remembered courage longer. By the time autumn crept across the plains, people stopped whispering Lila's name like a warning and started saying it like a fact. Caleb Hart's wife. The words carried weight now. Not ownership, belonging. The ranch no longer felt like a refuge borrowed on mercy. It felt claimed by sweat, by choice, by shared silence. Still, peace in the Wild West was a fragile thing, thin as frost on dry grass. It shattered the night the past finally came to collect its debt. They came at dusk, 3 riders, dust-choked and deliberate. The same men who believed a receipt mattered more than a vow. Caleb saw them first, standing at the fence line, the sky bleeding red behind them. He didn't reach for his rifle immediately. He reached for Lila. That alone told her everything had changed. She didn't step back. She stepped forward, shoulder to shoulder with him, and in that moment, the marriage stopped being a shield and became a bond. The men spoke of contracts, of money lost, of honor twisted into entitlement. Caleb answered with calm, lethal truth. "She's my wife. And this ends now." Lila watched the men's eyes flicker, not at Caleb's gun, but at her steadiness. They expected fear. They found resolve. When the first shot rang out, it wasn't chaos. It was decision. The West had chosen its side. The fight was fast and ugly. Dust, shouts, pain. When it ended, 2 riders fled and 1 lay wounded but alive, staring up at Lila as if seeing a ghost. She knelt, voice low. "Tell them," she said. "Tell them I wasn't bought. Tell them I chose." The man nodded, shaken, and crawled away carrying a truth heavier than any bounty. That night, the ranch breathed differently. The house held the echo of gunfire and something else, relief. Caleb cleaned his wounds at the table while Lila stitched with steady hands. Their fingers brushed. Neither pulled away. The past had tested them and failed. The marriage, born of necessity, had survived fire. Weeks later, a letter arrived, legal, final, stamped with the end of claims. The West had moved on, as it always did, toward the next story. But this one stayed. Travelers spoke of a ranch where a woman once sold stood taller than any man, and of a rancher who learned that saving someone meant standing beside them, not in front. On a quiet morning, Lila stood at the rise overlooking their land, wine lifting her hair. Caleb joined her. No words were needed. The choice had been made again and again, in blood, in silence, in work, in trust. She took his hand, not as property, not as protection, but as a partner. And somewhere out there, the West remembered. If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Subscribe to the channel and keep the legend alive, because the real Wild West wasn't just fought with guns, but with choices that changed lives forever.